Shalom, I am Rabbi Shaul Praver. We are here with Dr. Hurwit, a composer, and he has a very interesting story to tell. Welcome, Dr. Hurwit.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. You know, I have a great love for music as well, and you've done something very interesting in your life. You started out as a doctor, and then you took a left turn somewhere.
Or a right turn.
Or a right turn.
Right.
Tell us about how you came into the world of music.
I've always had some music in me, but when I was 55, which was 1986, it started to really bubble out, and I felt I had to dedicate myself to seeing what was going to happen in the music world. At that point, my last child became self-sufficient. We have 3 children, and so I had a little more financial flexibility, and I decided, well, I could try and work part-time and as a physician and part-time as a composer, but I was too compulsive. I had to be 100 times one or 100 times 100% on the other.
Right.
And so I decided to try composing for 6 months, and if that didn't work, go back to medicine. I never went back to medicine, although to this very day I missed it. I loved practicing medicine, but I guess I love composing a bit more.
All right. Now, you have an unusual story because you weren't born with music, not from a musical family per se. You had limited music education. Tell us a little bit about that, going back to the very early years.
Well, when I was a youngster, perhaps 7, 8, 9 or so, I took piano lessons for 3 or 4 years, and I wasn't a very good student. I had a pretty good ear, and I bluffed my way through. And so to this very day, my reading skills are like that of a 2nd or 3rd year piano student.
Okay. And so what happened? How did this, you say, bubble over?
Well, I would hear music in my head and felt it just had to come out. I checked with the Hart School of Music, which is close by to me, at the University of Hartford, and they're an excellent institution and an excellent school. And I went for some interviews, and the head of the Department of Composition said he thinks maybe I have some talent, but the only way to do it would be to go back, take piano lessons, go to undergraduate school for 4 years, and to compose the way I wanted to, maybe graduate school for 2 more years. Well, I'd been that route once already professionally. And just at that time, computers and synthesizers came out.
Okay.
And by becoming conversant with them, I was able to bypass all of that music education. And it's interesting, since then, the head of composition there, Robert Carl, as well as other professionals I've worked with, have said, don't study theory, don't study harmony, just do it your way, and it seems to have worked out.
That's interesting. Why? Why should you not study harmony and
Because
theory?
I guess they knew I was lazy, but besides, besides that, I perhaps go down roads that one shouldn't go down. The disadvantage is at times I'll be working on something for minutes or for hours, and I hit a brick wall. If I were a trained composer, I would know, don't even attempt that route. There's no resolution. On the other hand, I walk down some paths that a trained composer might not walk down. And so if it ain't fixed, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, it seems to be working all right.
Well, that's fascinating. You know, it's like, it reminds me of the carpenter bee that flies, and it really, physiologically, it ought not to be able to fly because its wings are too short to carry that kind of weight. But nobody told the carpenter bee that he couldn't fly, so he just flew. Nobody told you can't do it that way.
Well,
you just do it. Now, that's fascinating to me. I'm a musician, a singer, and I've been writing music most of my life, although my main job is a rabbi, community rabbi. At the end of the day, when people leave, I write my songs. And it's fascinating. I think it's a wonderful story of how you remain true to your love, to your dream. And you must have had support from your family. You must have a very loving wife.
I do.
Tell us a little bit about your family life and the dynamics.
Well, besides a loving wife, we have 3 loving, wonderful children, and they've each married, and each one of those family units has 2 children, so we have 6 grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the wonderful side effects of this composing is that when I was given a world premiere by the Hartford Symphony, the whole family were in one row, 14 of us in one row, and I was enjoying it with my grandchildren. And since the music, the symphony, which we'll discuss, is really an ongoing family story,
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that touched me, even though the history goes back to 1736, and
Mm-hmm.
there are pictures in the CD of the family starting with a man born in 1796, and the reason there's a picture of him is he lived to be 106.
Wow.
So we have this past family history, which I'd like to believe comes out in the music of the symphony,
Mm-hmm.
but there it's ongoing. I mean, there are children there watching it. So this expanse is going from 1736 to almost to the next century.
Okay, so your music and your interest in the family tree, sort of go hand in hand?
Not at first. It was of a more pragmatic nature. I'd say all composers, except perhaps me, know the structure of a symphony or whatever piece they're doing, and they know what the movements are, etc. And of course, a symphony, my symphony is 59 minutes long, and what's played in the 4th movement has to relate to the 1st movement.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be an argument, a logical, consistent argument that carries all this through.
The thematic material.
Thematic and the feeling of it. Well, as I say, composers know in advance what the superstructure of a symphony is.
Right.
I didn't. Luckily, Michael Lancaster, who was the conductor of the Hartford Symphony Orchestra for 15 years, liked what he had heard and agreed to work with me for 2 years. And the first thing he did was teach me about the structure of a symphony and a rough scaffolding on which I should build my symphony. But I needed something more. And after the 1st movement, I realized that something more was the family history.
Mm.
And so the movements, while there is some scaffolding of a conventional nature, in my mind is much more related to a family history logic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And consistency.
Well, tell us a little bit about the family history and
Sure.
what you're trying to do with the music as far as
Right.
that goes.
Well,